Benvenuti a tutti, and welcome to another edition of Italian America Long Island. My name is Dave Anthony Sattadicati. We're about ready to go. This is our second show on the beautiful island of Sicily. We're heading from Palermo, which is in the northwest, all the way across the island to Siracusa in the southeast. And on the way, we're going to be stopping at Piazza Armerina to see the wonderful UNESCO heritage site of Villa Romana del Casale. So get your coats and get your stuff. We're almost ready to go and we don't want to be late for the bus as we travel across Sicily. Just like any other modern city, traffic in Palermo is very, very heavy. We're heading out to the Autostrada, which is Italy's beautiful highway system. Here we see some of the countryside of Sicily. It's very rugged and very mountainous, also very beautiful. Agriculture has been a very important part of Sicilian history. In Roman days, it was known as the breadbasket of Rome, and today agriculture is very, very important. Here we see a site in the lower right that shows you the way that the Italians build their highways. That's an elevated highway. They prefer to keep the highways at the same level all along the route. So there are many, many elevated highways and many, many tunnels. After traveling for a while, we stopped in Enna. I ran into a shop and asked to use the restroom, and this is what I found. It's Italian plumbing at its worst. Piazza Armerina is located about 2/3 of the way from Palermo to Siracusa. The Villa Romana del Casale is the ruin of an imperial Roman villa dating to approximately 320 AD, with the richest, largest, and most complex collection of late Roman mosaics anywhere in the world. It was probably a country retreat for somebody unknown of very high rank around the time of the Roman Emperor Maxentius. And experts believe the owner was not only a military hero, but also an educated man with expertise in poetry, history, and music. In late antiquity, most of the Sicilian hinterland was partitioned into huge agricultural estates called latifundia. The size of the villa and the amount and quality of the artwork indicate that the villa was the main center of such a latifundium, whose owner was probably a member of the senatorial class, if not of the imperial family itself. He was the absolute upper class of the Roman Empire. Travel guides from antiquity, notably the Itinerarium Antonini, gives the third last mansio, or station for rest and change of horses, on the Catania-Agrigento road as Filosofiana, located 45 Roman miles before Agrigento. This falls in the region of the villa, so it's believed that was the name of this estate. The site was finally abandoned for good when a landslide covered the villa in the 12th century with 90 feet of mud. Early in the 19th century, pieces of mosaics and some columns were found, as the story goes, by a farmer digging a well. The first official archaeological excavations were carried out later in that century. In the 1920s, Paolo Orsini excavated the site, followed by the work of Giuseppe Coltrera in the 1930s. Major excavations took place in the period of 1950 to 1960, which were led by Gino Gentili, and he is credited with discovering most of the villa. In the 1970s, Andrea Carandini carried out excavations at the site, and work is still continuing to the present day by the University of Rome. Not only is the structure of the villa amazing, the truly remarkable part of this archaeological find are the 38,000 square feet of floor mosaics that are largely intact. There are many scenes from the owner's life and also from classical mythology. This scene depicts Eros wrestling with the semigod Pan. This is the most famous of the mosaic floors, the Room of the 10 Maidens. They're in bikinis, amazingly, and they're involved in athletic competition. The winner is being crowned. There she is. There are so many mosaics of animals and animal hunting scenes that it's believed the owner had a business in which he captured animals in Africa and sent them to Rome for the gladiatorial games. Here are 5 very important people on the floor. This is probably an entranceway to a meeting room. Not every room in the villa has been identified for its use. These are believed to be bedrooms, and the floors, while they are so intricate and beautiful, they don't depict any scenes. Perhaps these people were relatives of the owner. And this is a slice of the Great Hunt mosaic, in which animals are being hunted and captured to be sent to Rome. The great hallway of the villa depicts the capture of animals, loading them on boats, and sending them to Rome for the gladiatorial games. The walls were also decorated, but that hasn't survived. Most of us believe that the gladiatorial games involves 2 men fighting to the death. While this did happen, it was very rare because it was so expensive to train a gladiator. More likely, the games involved gladiators fighting with animals, and if they could fight with exotic animals such as an ostrich, it was even more exciting for the Roman crowds. There were also rooms dedicated for the worship of Roman gods. These were very private areas that the family would use, and they were sacred to the house. This is an artist's conception of what the Villa Romana del Casale would have looked like in Roman days. It's quite a place, and it's still quite a place to visit. If you go to Sicily, make sure you book a trip to Piazza Armerina. This is the way it looks today. All of those buildings have been reconstructed more or less to protect the ruins. We're back on the road again, and here are some more of the plowed fields of the hinterlands of Sicily. We're headed to the Grand Hotel Villa Politi, which was built in 1862. It has been a very famous hotel. Winston Churchill, Muhammad Ali, Pope John Paul II, many famous authors and poets have stayed there, and it's a very beautiful grand hotel. And now Paula and I have our chance to share in the grandeur of the Villa Politi. This is the entrance. You really can't see the grand staircase too well here, but it's quite beautiful. They have modernized the hotel, and this is sort of a public sitting room that is next to the reception area. It's quite comfortable and cozy, beautifully done, and it's also been modernized. ceiling is gorgeous. Wrought iron on the gates over there in the balcony. Just a beautiful, beautiful room. A cozy spot to sit by the fire. And this is the chandelier in the dining room, which serves as the grand ballroom. Quite elegant. Just a beautiful place. The hotel is rumored to be haunted, and I will have to say that Paula and I will agree with that. On our first night in the hotel, we had a room with a balcony, and the balcony, similar to the one pictured here, had exterior shutters and interior glass doors. Above the glass doors was a drape. That first night, we locked the exterior shutters, we locked the glass doors, and we pulled the drape closed. When we woke up the next morning, the drape was pulled open, the glass doors were locked, but the shutters were wide open. The next evening, we were sitting in our very comfortable room after dinner, and I got a phone call on my cell phone. It said Garden City, Long Island. I swiped it, and a woman said, "You called me?" I said, "No, I haven't called anyone. I'm in Syracuse in Italy." And the woman said, "Well, your name came up on my television set as the phone rang. I recognized it, so I called you back." I asked the woman who she was. She was a secretary that had worked in the school system that I had worked in, and I hadn't seen this woman for 30 years. And I had marginal contact with her while I was working. I never had any contact information or the phone number of this woman. It was not in my phone at all, so there was no way I could have accidentally dialed her. So I definitely think that the Hotel Villa Politi is haunted. The next morning, we're up and we're out to the Archaeological Park of Syracuse with its beautiful entrance. We're going to see the Ear of Dionysus, which is a cave formation that was dug in Greek and Roman times as a water storage for Syracuse. The narrow tunnel was dug from the top down, and it's a unique S shape because they followed a creek when they did this. The cave was named the Ear of Dionysus in 1608 by the painter Caravaggio, who had visited the area. According to legend, and possibly one created by Caravaggio himself, a tyrant ruler used the cave as a prison for political dissidents, and by means of the perfect acoustics, he eavesdropped on the plans and secrets of his captives. Another more gruesome legend is that the evil tyrant Dionysius carved the cave in its shape so that it would amplify the screams of prisoners being tortured in it. Due to earthquakes, unfortunately, the sound focusing effect can no longer be heard because access to the focal point is no longer possible. But it's still a remarkable feat of engineering. We're walking back through the park, noticing some of the beautiful flowers, and we're on our way to see the ancient Syracuse Greek Theater. These are the ancient stones, 3,000 years old, for the beautiful Greek theater here in Syracuse. As most people know, the Greeks were among the first to occupy Sicily. The green areas at the top of the theater are the areas where stones have been stolen and used for other buildings. This is truly a remarkable area. Many people are familiar with the great Greek engineer Archimedes. He was born here in Sicily, in Syracuse. He's their most famous son. This is the Roman arena. The arena is a full circle or oval. Greek theaters are always semicircular in shape.
The original height was
This looks like a typical picture of tourists in front of the amphitheater, but we're actually deciding where we're going to go eat. We've decided to go to Ortigia, which is an island right off of the main city of Syracuse. It's a beautiful place, and of course there are Greek ruins there too. This is the Temple of Apollo. We had a wonderful lunch back to the hotel where we rested, and for tomorrow we're going to the UNESCO World Heritage City of Noto. Noto is a short ride from Syracuse. Here's the pedestrian street in Noto. And it's a good idea if you're going to be touring an area to have only 3 or 4 cities as your main base, and then take short trips out from those cities when you can. Plan it carefully and you'll avoid that annoying packing and unpacking every night in different hotels. This is the City Hall of Noto. Noto has a very interesting history. In the year 1693, the entire town was virtually razed by the Great Sicilian earthquake. Over half the population is said to have died from this earthquake. It was decided to rebuild the town at the present site. These circumstances have led this town to have a unique architectural homogeneity, since the core of the town was all built over the next decades after the calamity. And the style is called Sicilian Baroque. Not only are the buildings in the same architectural style of Sicilian Baroque, they're also in the exact same type of stone. And it gives this beautiful color that just absolutely gleams in the sun. The detail of the doorways and the carvings around the portals of the city is amazing. This is the Palazzo Villa Dorata on Via Nicolacci, which was built in 1733. The family that built this palace made their fortune in tuna fishing. They had been poor tuna fishermen until one of their family invented a new method of harvesting tuna. He organized the local fishermen into companies, and he made a fortune. He built this extravagant palace with these extravagant balconies, intricately carved, and he also had enough money to purchase himself an aristocratic title. There are over 35 churches in Noto, but this one is my favorite. In fact, it may be my favorite in all of Sicily. When you enter the church, the feeling you get is purity. And for Italian standards, it's a very simple church. Of course, we think it's very ornate. This is a side altar. A painting of a famous saint. And this is Saint Anthony, my favorite saint and my namesake. There are so many steps and so much walking on this tour, so many uphill inclines that every now and then you've got to find a nice quiet spot to sit down and rest. And that's just what Paul is doing as we wait for the tour bus to pick us up to take us to our agriturismo lunch near Lake Lentini. We're going to a farm that has been in operation since 1827 and is owned by a contessa. This is one of the outbuildings. It's still very beautiful and very, very quaint. And we had a delicious antipasto outside. And then we went inside to have our meal, which was absolutely fabulous. We started with a risotto, we had a lemon pesto pasta, and the main dish was polpette, or meatballs. This is a beautiful courtyard in the agriturismo. It was all very rustic and very beautiful in its way, and quite a sharp contrast to the cities that we visited. We're on the road again, and we're going to Modica, my favorite city in Sicily. It's just a beautiful place with beautiful people. Of course, it's built on a hill. We had a wonderful time here. Carved into the side of a mountain, as are most Sicilian towns and cities, Modica is just gleaming here in the sun. It is such a beautiful place. It's really an ordinary Sicilian town, but if ever I were to leave the United States and move to Italy, I would move to Modica. What a lifestyle these people have. While we were there, we went to the Antica Dolceria Bonaiuto, which is a candy factory specializing in chocolate. It's located in this very quaint little side street. This is a diorama that is absolutely so realistic. It shows you the skill that the Italians have. That's how they used to make chocolate in the old days. He's grinding the cocoa beans on that. Our guide at the factory is showing us the modern way they do it, and that's some of the equipment. But still, things have to be done by hand. He's getting out some of the air bubbles from the chocolate. Well, leaving the chocolate factory, it's just so nice to stroll through these quiet streets and alleyways of Modica. Just beautiful scenes. Wonderful way to live. Just a wonderful way to live. This is one of the churches there, the Duomo of San Pietro. Again in the Sicilian Baroque style. And the statues on the outside there by the entry are the 12 apostles. A little bit further along and up hundreds of steps, up on one of the highest peaks of the city of Modica, is located the Duomo di San Giorgio, magnificent in the Sicilian Baroque style. A beautiful building. And the inside is so intricately decorated, it's gorgeous. Plenty of sun, it's brilliant. The artistry of Italians is amazing. This is the church organ, and it's a wonder that this is still a living church. People come here on Sundays to worship. It's a little view of the dome that lets in so much light into this beautiful building. The altar reminds you of the tremendous wealth of the Catholic Church. And the piece behind the altar is museum quality. It's worthy of a museum. It's tremendous. An interesting feature here is that on this line is actually tracing the path of the sun, and there are markings to indicate the astrological and astronomical positions of the sun through the year. And this is, of course, a little side altar to Mary, Mother of God. Again, Saint Anthony, one of the most popular Italian saints, second only to Saint Francis. Some of our more energetic travelers climbed the 100 steps up to the bell tower. We stayed down to get a little selfie. Back on the main street, We walked around a little while until we found a restaurant we thought we'd like. And we were very lucky. We found the Osteria dei Sapori Perduti, the restaurant of lost tastes. Stepping inside, you can see how beautiful he's got this place decorated. A very religious man. He's got all of these photos to bless his wonderful restaurant.
Buongiorno a tutti. Papà, aiutami. Benvenuti all'Osteria dei Sapori Perduti. Ok. Questo è il nostro menù.
That was our waitress.
Okay?
And what a menu it is. You can see it's a book. On the left is a description of the meal with the ingredients. And then on the right, you have a picture of the meal. Also a description in many different languages. This is the lentil soup. We had it. It was absolutely delicious. This is cavatelli with tomato sauce and melanzane. And of course, we had ravioli. We ate outside under the Sicilian sun. What a way to have a meal. After lunch, we're off to the nearby town of Ragusa. This is the deep valley that separates the two sections of the town. Ragusa was also damaged in the 1693 earthquake and rebuilt in the Sicilian Baroque style, as was Modica. This is the ancient portal to the city. Coming into the main square, we found this very interesting shop. It is a ricotta bar, specializing in ricotta cheese. This building is a meeting hall that the Ragusans love to come in and share their conversation and their thoughts. They're very politically minded and they're very socialist. As far back as 1848, the Ragusans were among the first to volunteer for Garibaldi's army in his fight to unify Italy. During the Second World War, Ragusa was one of the many towns that was anti-fascist and anti-Mussolini, and this was for many reasons. First of all, Mussolini replaced the Sicilian police with police from the north. Then he had a brutal and draconian program to eliminate the mafia that was so cruel it alienated many of the people. When food became scarce and Mussolini's regime had to ration food, Sicily was the last place to get it. And the irony was that most of the food was grown in Sicily. This tower shows the Arabic influence that's still here. And how could you come to Italy without having gelato? We stop here at the Gelato Divini, which is very interesting because their gelato is mixed with local wine. Quite delicious, many different flavors. I had the pistachio. Wonderful, wonderful. Here in America, we call it Italian food, but in reality, each regione of Italy has its own cuisine. Paula and I happen to prefer Sicilian cuisine. This concludes our second part of our trip to Sicily. Tune in next time for our third and final part, which will be featuring Taormina and Mount Etna.